of the year.
Nah, I don't feel like it.
Grinch is in town.
No, this one is going to go out after the Christmas, so I don't feel like it.
Yeah, he has those that December birthday thingy as well.
Yes, unfortunately or fortunately.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I'm the guy who can never celebrate his birthday as it should be celebrated.
How is that?
Nobody wants to come. I was born on the New Year's Eve, so everybody is celebrating New Year's. Nobody cares about me. Yes, I know. So, what are we up to?
I don't know. Storage?
Yes, this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about because I was having some storage, I wouldn't say storage issues, a couple of days ago.
Okay.
I was trying to convince people that it is completely okay to replace working, completely functioning drives while they're working and completely functional.
Okay.
And that having to invest into storage is something that you need to do. So I just basically wanted to go and create a small episode where we are going to talk about how often do we need to change the drives, and do we need to change the drives? Is it possible that we have come to a point where the drives need to be changed more often than the computer itself?
Okay. Sounds reasonable. Okay.
So let's roll the thingy and then we talk about it. Anyways, so what's my point?
And we are eagerly awaiting for you to state the point.
Yes. So what's my point? My point is that today's computers, give or take the last 3 or 4 generations, are probably going to last more than your storage is going to last. So your NVMEs, SSDs, and hard drives, especially SSDs, are probably going to fail much faster than your computer is going to fail. So the motherboard and your CPU is probably going to be much better off after 5 years than your disks. So how often do you need to change your disks in order to not be in need of urgent restore from a backup?
Okay.
And does it even matter what you do with the disks, or are we going to just treat the disks as something that needs to be changed, I don't know, annually or biannually or whatever?
I would divide the answer to your question into 2 different categories, or 2 different, let's say, strategies. The first one being general use case for all of the regular users, whatnot, maybe even free use cases. The second one would be ISO 27000 something companies or something that's governing, let's say, data retention. And then the third one would be non-ISO 27000 whatever and similar standard environments in which you don't have any kind of additional rules to govern, or let's say, the data retention periods and whatnot. I would say that there are 3 different topics to discuss here.
Okay, let's stick to ITIL, because I think that 27,000.
No.
But I think that 27,000 in this 27,001 in this particular case doesn't have a lot to do with wear and tear of the disks.
Yeah.
It is directly involved in how to get rid of the disks and how to replace them. But the wear and tear, I think that the most common problem that is going to happen is not going to be in the data centers. I think the most common problem is going to be with the people's computers at home, because they are the ones suffering through multiple boot downs. Because in data center, basically, you power up your computer and then their disk has, I don't know, 30 cycles and 57,000 working hours. And in your home computer, your disk can, without any problem, collect 1,000 or 2,000 cycles in a year.
Okay, this is an excellent point on which to start. One that I'm very much in agreement with you about. Just today I was disassembling a huge rack of storage devices in our previous college because they are moving. And in general terms, my experience so far points to the fact that the more you turn these devices on and off, the more they fail.
Yes.
Any kind of device, not only storage devices, by extension laptops, desktop computers, whatnot. Although it is also fair to say that most of the components are still much more reliable than what they used to be when we started in IT.
I'm going to go partially with your points, and I'm going to say that my gut feeling right now is that the SSDs are much less reliable than the hard disk drives used to be.
Okay.
And it could be just a gut feeling, but I think that the problem that the normal users usually have is that they tend to over-provision the storage on the disks. So basically, they tend to keep the storage, the free size part of the disk that is free. They're keeping it too low, and this creates additional wear and tear on this part of the disk because the SSD itself cannot function if it doesn't have enough space to distribute the writes. So I think that this is one of those things that actually made matters worse. And this thing is a big problem. I want to add one more thing. The reason why I even thought about this was because the Christmas is right now nearing. And there was a thread, and there is an actual study made that the notion that the system administrators are going to have problems over the Christmas Day and New Year's Eve is not something that is just a thing that we think it's a Murphy's Law. It's also a thing because people tend to use computers much less during the Christmas and New Year's Eve, and then the storage devices themselves tend to spin this down because what they do is they're trying to save the power, and then the disks that were under enormous load during the whole year suddenly spin down, suddenly cool down, and suddenly just the thermal stress on the disk becomes a thing, and then disks fail.
So basically nobody should have Christmas vacation.
Yes, or you should just be doing the rebuilding of your RAIDs during the Christmas vacation, so you just have the disk do something. Resilvering.
Okay, there are many storage devices that do that all by themselves, so that's completely reasonable. You can also kind of link this discussion to various generations of specifically SSDs. If you remember in 2007-8, when first, a little bit less, 2006-7, when first SSDs came out, they were much more prone to failure than the devices that we have now. Although, to your point that you made a couple of weeks ago in our conversation about certain SSDs, you said that there ain't no way in hell that you would buy certain SSDs like EVQ or whatever they were because of the write cycle, etc. So they are less, let's say, stable long-term in terms of the amount of writes that you can do on them. So that's also a point that needs to be made when you are buying, let's say, SSDs for your let's stick to personal computers, laptops, desktop computers, whatnot. This is something that we should actually consider. It's not only a long-term thing; it's a thing.
But first, we need to go more into detail on how disks fail. So first and foremost, we need to make let's say a distinction between mechanical hard disks and SSDs and NVMEs. They function in a completely different way. We know that, but they also fail in different ways.
Correct.
The SSDs don't have such a problem with power on and power off cycles.
Okay.
They don't tend to have this problem simply because there is not so many moving parts in it, and they don't suffer from thermal loss, thermal stress on the platters. They don't suffer from the thermal stress on the heads and so on. So power ups and the power downs are a thing for HDDs.
And the mechanical failures from dropping or whatnot are basically non-existent.
In SSDs, they're non-existent. In NVMEs, they're non-existent. But To be completely honest, the way what I saw in the last couple of years, the way people mount NVMEs is that they tend to be prone to mechanical failures because of the connector, because people don't know how to mount the disk. They usually do it without enough support for the disk itself, and they forget to put on the thermal layer on the disk, so the disk itself is pretty loose in the socket, so you can actually break down the disk by just vibrating the laptop.
There's a point to be made there for our motherboard episode from a couple of months ago. One of the reasons why this happens is definitely manufacturer mistake, and they're becoming more and more conscious of this, and they're implementing those easy mount mechanisms with clamps, which is the way to go. That's a very good solution for that, because at least then the mechanical aspect of it, so mechanical connection between the SSD and the motherboard, there is no way in which you're going to just shake the motherboard or a computer and the SSD falls out. It's
also I saw that modern motherboard, by modern, I don't mean modern, I mean new motherboards, tend to have small pieces of sponge underneath the disk. So once you open the part where the NVMe disk should be, you have some sort of a support to support the disk in the middle, and that combined with the latch that is used to put the disk in place creates a much better mechanical bond than that it would be if a person is just mounting it, because people don't understand that the disk shouldn't be movable. It should be connected to the motherboard, and then the connector should be fixed as possible.
Another, just to add the final detail that I can remember from that perspective, a lot of the high-end motherboards also have those metal coolers on top of them for NVMEs as well. And when you basically mount your SSD on the motherboard, you usually use the latch to basically secure it in place, and then on top of it you physically put a big metal cooler on it and screw it on, so there is no way in which it's going to fall out. So that's definitely a good step, although it makes motherboard more expensive to make, more expensive to buy as well, and it's in terms of weight, it can become a problem in the highest end motherboards, because those are usually very heavy.
The other thing is that we are playing a game of peekaboo about the NVMEs, because I know in the last 3 weeks I have talked or helped a couple of guys who had their own motherboards without even knowing how many NVMe slots do they have. So basically they put in
one BS episode, basically.
It's not the marketing BS, it's just people not reading the manuals, and then suddenly realizing that the part of the motherboard that they thought was a cooler was actually a core for the NVMe, and there is a slot for 2 NVMEs underneath.
And then you have to disassemble a whole computer to put
Yes, you need to remove all the cards, and then you need to remove the part of the aluminum, and then you need to remove the stickers. And this is one thing that I wanted to mention, because you said there is a piece of thermal paste or the piece of thermal material, usually discarded by a sticker. Enormous number of people don't know that they need to remove the label above the sticker. It says "remove me," but nobody does it. So suddenly you have a piece of cellophane that is preventing the disk from getting the cooling it needs.
Can I add something on a tangent to this? Very short. One other aspect of use cases for the NVMEs on the motherboards, and by extension there are other devices that suffer from the same problem, and many of those, PCI Express cards specifically, because NVMe is mounted basically on PCI Express X4. The fact of the matter is, following on the topic that you just mentioned, so people not reading manuals, oftentimes people do not configure the motherboard correctly, or even worse, they don't put the NVMe slot in the NVMe drive in a correct slot. This is a big thing nowadays.
And
just to kind of also clarify the point about other pieces of hardware suffering from the same problem. Most modern motherboards have multiple X16 slots, which are electric X4 or X1. And if you have a card, let's say Blackmagic cards or even video cards, whatever. There are many different types of controllers that physically need X8. Some of them will not work properly unless you install them in a correct slot. By extension, in the manual of the motherboard, you usually know exactly which NVMe slot is connected to the chipset, which one is connected to the CPU, which is very important, and also is it PCI Express 3, 4, or 5, which is very important potentially for purchasing decisions.
But on the other hand, the idea of there being a right NVMe slot and wrong NVMe slot is something that is
stupid as hell.
Stupid as hell, and it reminds me of having to have a master and a slave and the
dip switches and
RQs and so on.
Exactly the point that I tried to make in the motherboard design episode. I'm completely against these sort of crappy ideas. I don't care that motherboard manufacturers think that they already gave us everything on the motherboard that they need. No, that's not the way to go.
This is the one thing, and the other thing that also bothers me is when they overlap the SATA and NVMe. And because they overlap the channels for the PC Express, and they usually either mention it just as a small footnote by saying that you need to disable whatever SATA slot is there is in order to enable the NVMEs.
Yeah.
This is a problem with older motherboards. Now, since NVMEs are much more in play, people tend to, motherboards tend to be configured in such a way that NVMe takes precedence. So in NVMEs usually it works.
One other thing, I recently, 2 weeks ago, I think, I got a request from a client of mine. They wanted to assemble a computer that has, let's say, 4 or 5 PCI Express slots, at least 2 of them being X16 and the rest of them being X8, physically. Not slot-wise, with what I was discussing a couple of minutes ago. You cannot believe how difficult it is to find a motherboard that supports that, unless you go into the workstation market, which they didn't want to. So forget about TRX, AMD motherboards, and whatnot.
WRX and so on, yes.
You know what's the last chipset that actually supports that? While it's still a workstation chipset, but it's not as expensive as those.
No.
The 299 chipset by Intel.
Oh.
So it's been a while.
Almost like 5 years.
Something, maybe even more. And I found them an Asus motherboard that has 7 PCI Express slots, X16 physically. X16 in terms of the width of the slot. I think 4 of them are actual X16 and the rest of them are X8 because they needed a lot of additional I/O. It's not a multimedia type of job that they were looking for, so it's not Blackmagic video, whatever. It's completely different. Never mind what it is. It is insanely difficult to configure a computer like that.
Yes, this is the other one thing, and the other thing is that for some reason or the other, BIOSes have become completely unusable.
Yeah.
I was trying to. So basically, I have a colleague of mine who was trying to move his disks from an old PC to a newer one. By old, I mean it was something like it is 12th generation Intel, and he was moving to 13th generation Intel. So it is just one generation old, newer PC. And the reason he was moving it is because more or less he got himself a new workstation, and he wanted to leave the old workstation to his kids. Whatever. I needed to just simply move 3 NVMEs from one motherboard to another. Straightforward. It took me maybe 20 minutes to understand how to configure this in the BIOS, because BIOS wasn't
after 30 years of doing that.
Yes, because BIOS wasn't helping me. It just stated that I have 2 disks. A third one was now nowhere to be found, and then I realized that I need to disable a certain controller. A certain controller. I think it wasn't SATA. I think I need to disable the secondary network or whatever, and then the disk itself became visible. Okay, then I realized that I have a problem because the third disk was in the slowest slot. There is also the concept of a slowest slot in the NVMEs, which is also insane. And then I had to reconfigure the disk, but this is one of those things that is bothering me, because we are not moving forward, we are moving sideways. We are creating, solving some problems, then creating new ones.
It's a solution without a problem. That's what we call that.
Yes, but at least the Windows keeps on working the same on whenever you change the configuration. And this is one of those things that is more or less.
Unless you have BitLocker.
But as I said, it continues working the same it was working in the previous configuration.
If you're lucky enough to have the BitLocker key, yes.
Yes, you're supposed to put your BitLocker key away on a separate USB disk. You are not doing this?
I have it in Azure Active Directory.
Yes.
Second best thing.
So they are going to create the problems with certificates themselves, as they usually do. But anyways, let's go back to the disks, because this is not the.
We have been talking about disks all the time.
This is not the motherboard rant. This is the disk rant. So
you cannot separate the two.
What I tend to think about last couple of years is that I think that instead of SSDs going into the market and removing HDDs as regular disks, what happened was that the NVMEs have become the primary disks, SSDs are on the way out, and
you mean SATA SSDs?
SATA SSDs.
Okay.
And the HDDs with platters are still a thing. Because if you need storage, you're not going to buy an SSD.
You mean if you need capacity?
Yes, storage having capacity. Yes, if you need large capacity of storage, you are going to buy an HDD usually, and then if you need a fast disk, you are not going to buy an SSD, because you're going to go with NVMEs because they are going to be an order of magnitude faster.
Hence the reason why both you and I, more myself I think than you, have such an enormous crap load of external disks.
Yes,
and that's not user friendly.
The problem is that we are combining enormous amount of storage that we need. We have a bias because we also want to have as fast storage as possible, and then we are usually using the laptops.
Yeah.
So this has suddenly become a thing that you require external NVMEs or external disks
in Thunderbolt.
In Thunderbolt, and only some
for Thunderbolt laptop. Yes.
Or the USB 3, whatever. But the problem is that we would probably get away with a large HDD, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah, because large HDD means 3.5 inch, which means a large external case and an adapter, which nobody does nowadays.
Yes,
as a something that he or she carries with.
I would say that I would be more likely to carry a complete Synology NAS with me than a single 3.5 inch HDD, because it would be simpler to set up.
Okay.
So, because it has its own adapter inside it, and it is able to function as a separate disk, so it would be much easier to set up if you want to move somewhere.
I agree, especially with modern motherboards in mind and the BIOSes.
But okay, modern motherboards, at least we solved the problem of different sizes. If you think about it, in the last 20 years, the storage was going through different stages of being a problem. First, the problem was the size of the disk, then the problem was the speed of the disk, then suddenly the problem was against the size of the disk, then we switched over to the speed, then to SSDs.
Latency as well.
Then latency, then number of writes, then number of reads. Then right now we are dealing with the problems with the connectors, but we are always having problems with the storage.
No, we are always having problems with everything. That's the way in which the industry works.
But I would say that disks themselves are right now trying to tie as a bottleneck with the networking. The networking is a problem because people want things to move as fast as possible. The idea of having an ISDN right now would be completely ludicrous for almost everybody who is into networking. Okay,
ISDN being a metaphor for a mechanical hard disk or something.
Yes, but today's mechanical disk would be 4 orders of magnitude faster than the ISDN.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be like that.
That's also correct.
So right now we are expecting at least 1G network. We are hoping for 2.5G.
We are not. We are hoping for 10G.
No, we are hoping for 2.5G, but we are probably going to end up with 10G.
While we're on the topic, the reasons of the past and some of the use cases that my clients sometimes have forced me, and I talked to you about this, to buy some extra SCSI stuff. I just received the Adaptec controller, and I bought. And do you remember those 3.5-inch cases or 5.25-inch cases for the actual cases in which you could just take like a caddy with the disc? And
Yes.
I bought that for SCSI. Like a 3-piece one for 3 discs, as at least once or twice a year I get a request to recover something from a SCSI disc for legacy reasons which shall not be discussed.
Okay, but it's the same reason why I have a zip drive at home.
Our colleague who works with us actually gifted me a zip drive some 6 months ago. He said, "Yeah, you can have it. If I need it, I'll ask you."
And this is one of those things that was immensely useful back way then when we were dealing with large files in the desktop industry. In the publishing.
Multimedia industry, specifically publishing, was heavily reliant on Jazz and on
Jazz and
zip drive.
and zip drives, and this was the problem way back then. But let's now go back to when do you switch to your disks? How often are you even aware of the need to basically throw away old disks and buy new ones?
So here's the deal. I buy Samsung SSDs and NVMEs only. I only have one exception to that because Crucial was faster with 4 terabyte PCI Express 5 disk. So I bought that one, but exclusively I have only Samsungs. I also have a tendency to deploy their utilities in Windows, and every once in a while being every couple of weeks, I actually look at the data that the control applications, smart and other things that it has, that it's telling me. And usually I don't change the disk until I see something there. But to get back to your point about different ways in which these things fail, hard disks fail usually, a lot of the times, not usually, but a lot of the times they fail little by little. SSDs usually fail spectacularly.
Also NVMEs.
Yeah, SSDs
And
NVMEs,
NVMEs
whatever.
basically just disappear.
Yeah, they just die.
They just die and you lose everything. But I'm completely fine with this because the backup has come to a point where you actually have backups. Right now there is no need or there is no reason for you to skip on backups because there's so many different ways you can back up your things, and this is not expensive. It used to be expensive.
Yes.
But right now having a backup is something that is just part of the normal culture.
It just is.
It just is, yes. So the NVMEs dying down and SSDs dying is just simply a thing that is happening. They're dying because the electronics usually gives up. Hard drives, well, the plattered ones, die little by little. But for example, I have a problem with the drive, and right now I'm trying to solve it. At home, I have my own NAS. My own NAS is based on Unraid. Mm-hmm. I have a single disk, and I don't know which one, that has a problem because it times out, and when it times out, it just completely locks the kernel.
Okay.
I don't know which disk is it.
Okay. There's a simple way to find it.
No, there isn't.
Without you physically opening the case and everything?
No. The problem is this. The NAS can be working for 3 to 4 weeks, then lock up.
Oh, you mean you don't know which disk it is?
Yes, I know which disk it is, and I have 8 of those.
No, I thought that you know which disk it is, but you don't know where it physically is.
No. I would know where the disk is. I don't know which one. I have 8 of those, and they're completely the same. Only the serial numbers are different. So all are Western Digital Reds. Mm-hmm. And I have absolutely no idea which disk is bothering me.
And nothing in the kernel log or something?
No, there is no kernel log because it locks up. It doesn't write the log. It just locks up on the I/O and doesn't write that the I/O has been locked up.
Oh,
it just freezes.
Yeah, welcome to Unraid.
It's more and more welcome to low-level problems in kernel in Linux. Because Linux kernel is not that resilient when it comes to disks. Having problem with reads. I don't know why.
Okay, you know what I'm looking forward to? When as long as I mentioned the Adaptec PCI Express controller that I just got, I cannot wait to put that in Windows 10 or 11. Because, SCSI stack as such, it's not only that it's here to stay. It's a part of all of the modern standards, SAS, SATA, whatever, doesn't really mean USB, FireWire, whatever. Everything is SCSI based. That being said, the support page from Microsemi, who bought Adaptec and then afterwards was bought by Broadcom as well, states that the last supported OS is Windows XP. I'm guessing that it's going to work in Windows 10 as well, no problem. If it isn't, well, another use case to do some things, because if you think about it, it makes no sense for that type of a controller not to work in Windows, because it's PCI Express controller, which if you kind of like go across the timeline, you would kind of say PCI Express became popular basically after Windows XP.
Yes, but on the other hand, I was browsing the news a couple of days ago, and I saw the news that what Microsoft is doing right now, they are committed to reworking the Windows printer spool.
Just like Apple is reworking their disk-based stack, they're removing traces of FireWire and stuff from the kernel.
Okay, but Windows printer spooler,
coincidentally one of the worst pieces of software ever written,
has been let's say a bumpy ride at best for all the users.
The pain of our existence.
And right now, what they're promising is that they are going to be zero drivers.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And that they are going to be able to
like class drivers for USB audio.
Yes, and I'm having all the knowledge and all the experience with Windows that I have. This is what probably 6th or 7th time that they have messed with the Windows print spooler, and I have a sneaky suspicion that this is not going to be the last one, and I have also a suspicion that this is not going to be the one that's going to solve the problems.
I had problems with print spooler yesterday. It's an everyday thing. Yesterday, it just didn't want to print on my connected USB printer, and then I didn't want to cancel. And then it didn't want to cancel whatever I did. And I went into shell, deleted the file, restarted the service, as you should, and it's okay. After that, it started printing. Nothing changed, no reboots, no cable reconnection. It's just the way in which print spooler is.
But but you are going to have the problems with print spooler every time you print.
Yes.
It's more or less the
continuous thing in the universe.
Unless you are printing something completely useless, and then the printer spooler is going to behave excellently, but the renderer is going to break, and you're going to get 100 odd pages of just machine code and random characters instead of a single page of an
it's
image.
It's not visible at all that we have a boatload of experience with HP printers under Linux. It's not really visible at all.
But it's not only HP printers.
I know. But it was a common thing.
But I would say that I much prefer printing under Linux using PostScript.
Okay.
And PostScript renderer, then leaving it all to Windows, because Windows is like a box of chocolates. You never know what's going to come out of the printer.
Mr. Forrest Gump.
Yes. So, but the problem is that you never know what's going to happen. You print a single page, you see your printer powering up, and then 2 pages come out.
No.
You suddenly realize you have a problem, but you don't know which one.
No. More commonly, you just leave it to print. And you think that it's printed out dozens of pages that you need, for example, for your accountant or something, just like it usually happens to me. And then you get to your accountant, and all of a sudden you realize that it has printed a thing, which also tends to happen quite a lot.
What you need is you need your accountant's printer to be connected to internet print.
No.
And then you need to print from your home directly.
No, we solved that problem by me carrying a laptop with me, and then I just USB connect his printer, and then I can actually verify it, which is not the solution, but it's still something.
But since we went on a tangent, probably 10 years ago or so, something, when the web printing and internet printing became a thing, I was dealing with a Canon printer, I think. It was a multi-purpose printer, one of the refrigerator-sized things. And I had a colleague who was higher up in the hierarchy of the university I was working for, and he was extremely excited about being able to print directly to this printer. And then he enabled the web print, because he was able to print from home directly to the office.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
And this was an amazing thing for him. And then
how much did the printer toner or the paper reserves last after that?
No, it's not. This wasn't the problem. The printer kept locking up, and then we called.
That's actually good.
We called the Canon guys, and they said, "Okay, can you please not enable the internet printing, because internet printing breaks every other type of printing on this printer. So you can either print over the internet, or you can use all the other functions of the printer. So if you want to use any other function, yes, if you don't use any other function, do not use the internet printing."
That's awesome. Okay, in terms of the going back to the original topic, which was the hard drives. So we kind of talked about the idea of how you would use and when you would replace, let's say, hard drives, whatever, NVMEs on the desktop. In terms of the other types of scenarios like data centers, storage devices, and or still the topic that I want to cover, which is ISO governed or whatever standard governed companies, the approach to that is vastly different. And actually there are some things that you can kind of like generally say, like generalize. And I think you both noticed this with me in the past couple of years as I've been doing maintenance for our server room. If I have a server that has 10K drives or 15K drives versus a server that has 7.2, the failure rates are galaxies apart for those. 7.2 drives, I cannot remember the last time one of them failed. 10K, one every 2 years, even when I'm buying them, refurbished. 15Ks tend to fail quite a bit. Hence the reason why I usually keep a box of spare disks pre-formatted or basically wiped out in the data center so that I can just, and that's proven to be, generally speaking, a good practice for us, especially since we years ago moved to virtualization. So I don't care about the local disks anymore all that much. I have basically all servers in RAID 1 for the OS, and that's that. Everything else is on storage. So the fundamental use case of disks on servers in those environments is almost non-existent. You don't need to change them, you just replace them regularly, have them on stock, and that's that. And they don't fail as much because you just don't need 15K drives anymore.
Yes, but
for servers, not for storage.
But when you're dealing with the lower end small office, home office solutions, and by low end I mean almost any Synology that is
it's not low end necessarily, but okay.
Okay, but let's call it low-end network test storage, because it is. Synology is the cheapest working solution that you can buy if you have a small office.
Okay.
If you have some other solution that is in this price range, tell me.
Cunepenticus, but they are all slightly more expensive.
Yes, but as
slightly.
I said, so Synology is probably the cheapest one.
I wouldn't call them the cheapest. It's not only about that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I would say that Synology is also better than them.
Unless you buy the Play version.
Okay.
But the problem is that the small offices are going to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're going to say, okay, this is the same thing, but this one is Play, so I'm going to be better off if I just save $40 or 40 euros and I buy the cheaper version, and then I'm going to get a Synology drive that is going to help me do whatever it needs to be done, usually storing some movies or some music.
You know what's the first thing on the tech spec sheet that I look for in Synology, let's say, storage, when I'm buying it for corporate use?
IOPS.
What?
IOPS.
No. CPU. Because most of them are ARM-based, the smaller ones. They're actually mid-range ones. They're ARM-based nowadays, and they just don't have the juice. So I'm just buying the Intel-based ones.
Yes, but my experience is that unless you're buying at least mid-tier Synology, you are not going to get enough CPU power for anything other than just running the disks.
Yeah.
And all the other things that the people who are running small offices tend to use are going to be awful.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems that I saw when I was dealing with people in the field or people who know me and then try to call me to solve problems is that they usually, I wouldn't call it over provision. They usually insanely over provision the Synology because they buy the cheapest one. The cheapest one is supposedly able to run virtual machines. It's able to run Dockers. It's able to run web applications and everything else. And then suddenly it's not able to write anything to the disk because it doesn't have the CPU power or the bandwidth available to.
Okay, we need to clear distinction here. Over provisioning that we discussed with SSDs has nothing to do with this over provisioning. This is basically resource over provisioning.
Yes, they're over provisioning resources as such. They're not over provisioning storage.
Yeah.
Because the storage itself is secondary thing there. And I think this is one of the things that I have two big
issues with, or
no. Two big companies that are doing the same thing. Synology is one, and MikroTik is the other. What they're doing is that they are trying to create. Sorry.
What they're trying to do?
So I have a problem with Synology being one and the MikroTik being another one. What they're trying to do is they're trying to standardize the user experience across all their devices, and the device range that they are covering with the same user experience and the same things that they are using is usually from, in MikroTik's case, because they are doing the routing, the routers and switches. You can buy it as cheap as 20 euros, and the most expensive one is 2,500 euros or more. And they supposedly have the same feature set. It is the same with Synology. They are claiming that the Synology that you buy for 120 euros is the same Synology that you can buy for 2,000 euros. And they are offering the same features. But
in terms of features,
but then suddenly you run into ideas because people see, now I can run a VM on my NAS
and Kubernetes and whatnot.
And then suddenly you try to run 20 different virtual machines on a system that is barely able to talk to the disk. The same with MikroTik. I have seen MikroTiks that were used for MPLS, and they were essentially the 30 euro version one that is supposed to be just a small router intended for a hotel room when you're away, so you can actually route your traffic through it. That's it. And this is one of those things where the manufacturers are doing a disservice to themselves.
Yes.
Because you suddenly think that if you don't see the higher end versions of the product, you suddenly think that your product is faulty. Because it should be telling you, this is theoretically possible, but let's not
for the life of you don't.
Let's not do it. Or it just should be limited to, I don't know, one virtual machine per device. That's it.
One of the reasons, the third use case, for example, the ISO 27000 whatever companies, doesn't really matter. One of the reasons why I like working with those for those companies, and I've been doing it for 15 years now, is the fact that we get to do stuff with disks. Yes. We get to beat them. We get to beat the crap out of them. We get to drill them. We get to play hard disk football with them. We get to throw them from from whatever floor of the building we are in, and then basically we office space them. For those of you who know what the Office Space series is, that's what we do. Office Space Sprinter Sim. Look it up. And we do that regularly. So I don't remember what's the policy. Is it 3 years or something? But I do have a colleague, on-site admin for each of those companies that I work for. They have a spreadsheet with the dates when the hard disk was installed, and then after 3 or 4 years, I don't remember, they usually call me up and say, "Do we want to have a hard disk party?" And when we do, it's fun.
Okay, but destroying the hard disks is one thing, but replacing them is something that everybody should be doing. You should be creating.
We are killing them and then replacing them, of course.
Yes, but you should be replacing the hard disks. Nevertheless, without any consideration to 27001, you should be, if you have a NAS at home, you should be replacing your disks every 3 years.
People don't have the money for that.
I don't think that the amount of money that you're going to be paying if you are a small office or if you're a small consumer is going to be that much. Because right now, if you are running, let's say, storage of 10 terabytes,
Okay.
replacing the 2 disks that you're going to have in RAID 1 mirror is going to be what, 400 euros
Yeah.
every 2 years. That's not too much to pay to be able to safely have storage that is not going to give up on you.
That's okay if you're some kind of a corporate entity, but for home users, that's never going to happen.
Okay, it's just the thing that I think should be happening.
Okay, as a best practice or as a policy. Okay, that's perfectly reasonable.
Because if you ask me, or if you ask you, 4 years ago, is an earthquake a problem for data centers? People will say no, it isn't. It's just a thing that we should be prepared for, but nobody cares.
Years and years ago, so anecdote, years and years ago in 2000s, when I started doing ISO 27001 courses as a part of CompTIA Security Plus certification process, there is a chapter there about various types of risks, because these frameworks are all about various types of risks: financial, operational, corporate, whatever. And within that chapter, there was a couple of pages about various, let's say, natural disaster type of situations,
whatever. For the natural disasters,
yeah.
yes.
And amongst other things, there was, of course, the floods. We had that in Zagreb
Yes.
many times in past 15 years. Earthquakes, we had 2 major ones.
Yes.
Fire. In that book, it was written that something like 85% of the corporate entities who had fire in their IT, let's say, infrastructure never opened again. So that's a very worrying sign, something like that. Not far from 85%, something like that. There were actually anecdotes about various, let's say, a little bit weird people, attacking corporate entities because of whatever reason. Nowadays, it's because of the, energy footprint or something. It used to be that a lot of activists were attacking various types of oil companies, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'm not getting into the politics of it, but it was explicitly written there that that's also part of the, let's say, corporate operational risk. As you know, the only thing that, and we commented on this after those 2 earthquakes a couple of years ago, that the only thing that's left, we have to have some kind of a volcano eruption. And I don't want to make joke of that, because Iceland is seriously troubled right now with the volcano eruption. And that was a semi-joke, but the big one was, the only thing that we need to have is some kind of a, let's say, insect-based.
Yes, locusts.
Locusts should take over.
Because we did the plague, we did the flood, we did the earthquake, so not the locusts.
Yeah, just the locusts are the logical next step. And yeah, it's not funny anymore after you survive all of that and see that in action.
It's not funny when you see that a major ISP is basically offline for 6 or 7 weeks because of a major fire in the data center.
That happened
because of the earthquake, and that happened because of the bad data center design. And this is some of those things that are after the fact they're completely normal. People that suddenly realize, oh no, you shouldn't be designing a data center like this. But on the other hand, the risk assessment matrix mentions earthquakes, but nobody paid any attention because we are not going to be in an earthquake in our lifetime.
Yeah, it still happened.
And yes, and then it happened.
By the way, do you know what was the second thing that I did after our first earthquake? So the first one was, of course, call everybody around, are you okay, blah, blah, blah.
Took your guitars?
Talk to what?
Took your guitars?
No. Come on. No.
Because our colleague of ours,
yeah.
When the earthquake came, he was home with his wife.
Okay.
He actually took his guitars and went out.
Okay, he's next level, crazy. No, actually, after I called, family members, whatnot, we talked as well. It was early in the morning. The first thing that I did is I got into my car and went to our corporate headquarters to check what happened with our racks. It's exactly the first thing that I did. And I was among the first 3 people who arrived, opened the server room, and to my greatest luck and to my very much happiness and everything, the only thing that happened was one of the 2.5-inch hard drives 10K failed. Just replaced that one, everything was working properly. It was like, because that was no joke.
For me, it was I immediately took a look at because I had a surveillance camera in the center, and I could see that there was a lot of dust happening after the earthquake, but everything seemed to be fine because everything was working. And then it took me a couple of hours before I got my bearings, and then I went there, and the thing was that when I opened the server room, the entire server room was covered in glass. No, it was covered in glass because we had security glass on the racks, and all the planes of glass broke at the same time. So I had small pieces of glass from something like 12 or 14 doors, 14 rack doors, all across the room. You couldn't go in. So the first thing that I needed to do is, in order to just walk in the room, to grab a broom and make my path so I can go in
through a pile
of glass. And then I calmly called the maintenance in the building and said, "Can somebody help me? I have something like 50 or 70 kilos of glass on my floor. Can somebody come up with a vacuum cleaner and help me clean it up?" And they said, "What?" I said, "I just need to clean up 70 kilos of glass. Can somebody help me?" And then they said, "We're going to be needing a larger vacuum cleaner for this." And then they got the industrial one.
No, you needed a stack of shovels to do that.
Yes, but basically this is the only problem. What I wanted to say was that after the earthquake, we changed the discs. We didn't change the discs because we had to change the discs. Because the reason why we changed the discs was simply because we didn't feel that we had any more reliability left in those discs, because they were through shock. This shock wasn't something that they were designed for.
So basically, you checked the smarts and whatnot.
No. I just preemptively did it because there weren't that many discs. I had something like 50 terabytes of discs, so maybe, I don't know, 2 arrays of 8 discs each. I just changed those arrays, removed everything. And then I put those discs offline, put them into the cupboard, and said, "Okay, we are going to use them whenever we need this," because the discs were something like 8 terabytes each. Every single one of them failed after we tried to use it. So out of the 16 discs or so, every single one failed after we powered them down, and they were down for a while.
Exactly as we were saying. That's why you keep stuff powered on. Less electrical shock, and in the case of hard disks, that's also coupled with the mechanical shock. And temperature-based and whatnot.
Temperature-based and whatever is happening in the chemistry on the platters and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And actually, and I would use my use case as an example of something that people mostly don't do, although I'm noticing it more and more actually. At home, I don't necessarily turn off my computer. And I'm noticing a lot of people, more and more people not doing it. I personally am doing it specifically for this reason, because I'm aware of the fact that powering them on and off and on and off millions of times, that's a special type of electric shock.
I decided that I'm going to remove my discs and put them into an unraid box that is going to be separate. It's going to be powered on 24/7, and then my computer right now is running on a single NVMe disk, so it's completely noiseless, and I can use it. Okay, with an asterisk, because it has a graphic card. And suddenly people with the graphic cards decided to go insane with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fans or whatever. So right now my plans are to step down my graphic card to something that is going to be completely noiseless. And I'm aiming for a net PC concept in a big desktop case.
I'm noticing that, so if you mention that you're going to silent, that means you have Titan XP to spare. I know where it needs to be.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, okay. So anyways, did we cover everything? I think we did.
Maybe we could spare a moment or two and talk about the USB flash memories as a part of it as well, if you want to.
I have only one thing to say. I consider those just the throwaways. I completely have no trust in there being any reliability in the USB drives, and I'm more than likely to just go with the, I'm not going to say cheapest ones, but I usually buy these USB sticks that are not bigger than 60 gigabytes, simply because I know that I'm going to throw them away, I'm going to forget them, and I'm not
Lose them everywhere.
lose them. I'm not going to put any trust into them.
Yeah, that's because your use case is vastly different to mine, and there are basically polar opposites in the use case of the USB disks. It's either what you're doing or what I'm doing. There is no middle. For me, having the fastest possible USB disks with at least 128 gigabytes of memories, and I have a couple of 256s as well, is a must for some of the things that I do in classroom for installation purposes. Because if I have a USB disk that does, I'm going to be stupid here, 20 megabytes per second read versus a 200 megabyte per second read, if I have to deploy something on a set of computers, that's going to be a massive time difference for me, and I don't want to waste time on waiting for a computer to be installed. So for that purpose, most of my USB sticks are usually quite larger than 16 gigabytes, and they're usually the fastest that money can buy at that point in time. I change them once a year. In the past couple of years, I've kind of like driven myself into this tempo of changing them once a year.
If I need that kind of speed and that kind of performance, I would probably go with an external case for the NVMe and use it through USB 3 or Thunderbolt. Because I wouldn't buy a USB stick.
I cannot do it that way. I cannot do Thunderbolt because two computers don't support it where I need to use it. And I don't want to carry around large cases with, I have enough of these external disks. I have probably 20 of them or something. Don't want to carry them around. USB sticks are perfect. One of the reasons why is their price versus performance versus space efficiency is really good. That's my use case. And even forgetting about the fact that there are some things that I do in terms of, let's say, Red Hat education and whatnot, it's written explicitly that we should use either USB disks or sticks, and my choice is to use the sticks because they're much smaller.
Okay. It's just I don't trust them. Yeah, it's not that I don't use them.
That's why I change them every year. So that's completely different to NVMe here or NVMe in my other laptops or whatever. That's completely different.
Because you can have, if you're dealing with external disks, you can also have different extremely interesting things, like the case that you bought that is able to boot VHDs and able to boot ISOs from USB 3. This is just simply a thing that is more or less a must for somebody who's doing lots
of installations.
Yeah. But these are edge cases.
Yeah. Why I'm not mentioning it.
From the perspective of a regular user, I don't trust a USB stick.
Okay.
I'm just going to go with, I don't trust them. They're just throwaways. I'm going to go with the smallest one possible right now. I'm leaning towards cheaper, faster 8 gigabyte drives, because they are enough for me to put any installation of any operating system on it. But then I don't need to care about what's on the disk, because my usual politics is that you put only things that I'm completely fine with losing on the disks. So I'm not going to put any personal documents or personal data on the disk. Okay. And so if something happens to it, if I format it by mistake, nobody cares. Let's go. That's it. So I don't need to care about those, because I also have 20 of those probably at home. Mm-hmm. So I just don't care about those. I'm just saying it's a throwaway. I don't care.
Okay. Are we done?
Did you cover everything?
I think we did.
Yes and no. I just wanted to mention one more thing.
Cloud coming.
No, you have absolutely no idea what's coming. Do you know what I miss most?
What?
The tapes.
I don't, but there is a reason for that. Okay.
Yes, but I miss the tapes. I miss the tapes because of when you said that price, performance, and speed is something that is good when it comes to USB sticks. I think that if they were able to solve the problem of the drives, not the tapes themselves, but the drives, the price, performance, and the storage amount that the tapes are able to hold would be something that a lot of people would be using at home.
Yeah,
but the drives themselves are extremely expensive.
And they are mechanically really not reliable. They're very, very sensitive to light, to heat, to sunlight
Yes,
stuff.
but this was the problem that we had with CDs, and then it was solved. And the problem was
What you want is magneto-optical. That's what you want. MO.
so mini discs. Let's bring back the mini disc.
I was seriously considering buying one last week.
I almost got one last week for no particular reason.
Okay, can I, before we close the session, can I go on a tangent of a tangent of a tangent?
Yes.
You mentioned this like 30 minutes ago, so I'd like to follow that up. Where's my 4L?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm just waiting for somebody for it to drop out the
To
thin
call me
air.
and say I have a 4L to spare?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
To just see it when I'm browsing to somebody else's old computers and they say I did this one.
Okay.
Because this is the way that I get all my old hardware.
Yeah.
I usually go somewhere where I see all computers and say, "Do you need this?" And they usually say, "No, we don't. Do you want it?" Yes, and that's it. So no money changes hands. I have old computers. That's fine then.
Okay.
Okay. So I have been Yasmin. This has been Veteran.
Still.
Thank you for being with us, and see you next time.
Bye.